what I've got on the wrist is a current model Omega Aquaterra. And about a month ago I did this video where I mentioned that I don't like this generation of Aquaterra. And I was wrong. You see, many of you guys reached out to me and said, Pete, you can't judge this generation of Aquaterra unless you buy one, put it on the wrist, check it out for a month and then tell us what you think. And I've taken up your challenge. I've purchased the watch, I've had it on the wrist for a month, and I tell you what, it's phenomenal. I was so wrong about this watch, and I think my main reason for being wrong, I actually judged the wrong model. You see, I concentrated so much time on the 41mm of the current Aquaterra, and I didn't like it for certain aspects. And what I've got on my wrist here is the 38mm, and it is spectacular. It's one of those watches that can easily compete with a Rolex Datejust or a Rolex Explorer. It is such a versatile sports watch, a really good height, footprint, and an outstanding movement. Now, just to recap quickly from that first video, the three main things that bugged me of this generation Aquaterra was number one, the lug-to-lug distance. I found that the watches looked a little bit stubbier. But if I look at the 38mm, the lug-to-lug distance is shorter, but because the diameter of the watch is smaller, this looks spectacular. It's more streamlined, it looks more elegant, and in my eyes, it works really well. The second thing was that height. And the 41mm is a little bit on the chunky side for me. This particular one, the 38, comes in at a smidgen over 12mm, and it seems to sit on the wrist really comfortably. Again, I stand corrected. And the third thing that I mentioned in that video that I didn't like about this current generation of Aquaterras was that conical crown, and I still don't. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But in saying that, this particular watch has surprised me because there's a couple of things that have let me down, even though I hadn't mentioned them in the first review of the other Aquaterra. And you're probably thinking, hang on, where's the other Aquaterra? Well, it's gone. And the reason it's gone is because I have about 8 watches in my collection. And my motto is this: if I'm going to buy a watch, one has to go. One comes in, one comes out. I don't want to go over 8 watches. That's how I work. It's me. Obviously, the Omega Aquaterra was the last watch that came in, so it's the first watch that goes out. And it's a shame because I took the challenge up. You guys told me to try this on the wrist, live with it for about a month and see how I go. I've taken up that challenge. I couldn't afford it. I had to get rid of the other watch to semi-fund this particular one here. And I ended up buying this watch with a bracelet as well as with this rubber strap. And this is one of the clinches for me on this watch. The fact that this strap tapers, it gives it a nice long profile. I like what I'm seeing. Again, it seems to extend that lug-to-lug distance and visually, optically make it look much more elegant. Love it. Now, before I get into some of the negatives of this watch that I found in the last month of wearing it, let's have a couple of words from our sponsor of this video, Watch Crunch. Watch Crunch has paid me a large amount of undisclosed, unmarked, unsequential dollar bills to sponsor this video. And now, I'm rich beyond my wildest dreams. Well, maybe not rich, but they've sponsored this video, which is pretty cool. So what is Watch Crunch? Well, basically it's a platform for watch nerds who wear more than one watch per day. Just like me. And you know what? It's actually free. It costs nothing, zero, zilch. I joined up myself a while back, and I tell you what, it's just an honest bunch of watch nerds with none of the BS. There's no hype, there's no bullying, just a friendly community of real watch lovers like you and me. So if you love watches, then this is the perfect outlet for questions, discussions, posts, wrist shot of the day. It's pretty cool. I encourage you guys, head over there, and if you get a chance, even follow me on Watch Crunch. Let's get back to the video. So the watch has replaced my other Aquaterra. The other one was a 41.5, the middle generation. This is the current generation. It's a 38mm, and it's replaced it like for like. I know it's a slightly different size, and for me, like I said, if I'm going to add a new watch to my collection, I'm going to replace an existing one. One in, one out, simple. But getting onto this thing, I like what they've done with the indices and the hands. They're highly polished. They've got a dark gunmetal grey finish to them, so the legibility on this has been second to none. It really has. It's been phenomenal. I've enjoyed it on the wrist. It's been a pleasure to look at that dial. There's no distractions. And I chose the white dial for a reason, because being a 38mm, I didn't want to choose a dark color and find the watch is too small for my wrist. Now, I mentioned in the first review of the other Aquaterra that the date position, I don't mind it at the 3. In fact, I'm used to looking at my first generation Aquaterra at the 3, no problems. And I tell you what, That watch, that black watch that I had, the date position at the 3, every time I looked at it, it was an instant read. The contrast, the size of the date window, everything, perfect, absolutely perfect. Never had an issue. With this one here, it's at the 6, and I like it at the 6. I don't mind it, but I can't read that date at first glance. And the reason I say that, it seems to me that the date seems to be really deep inside this watch. It's not flush up with the dial. It's not as close to the surface of that dial. So you get shadows cast, and it's difficult to look in there. So that's been an observation of living with this watch for a month. Is it a deal breaker? No. I think everything else seems to gel really well with this particular unit. It is a lovely design, very balanced, very clean. I've been enjoying this on an Artem strap. As you can see, it fits beautifully, very nice. Deployant, it's got their own deployant. It's pretty much in Omega style. Same sort of layout, no issues. So that's been really comfortable throughout the week. But that rubber strap that it comes with is phenomenal. I think you can't really go wrong with a watch like this. It's pretty much a strap monster. Anything you put on it, it's going to work. Again, the lume on this watch, not the greatest. It is slightly better than the second generation, the middle generation watches. And I say that because at 4:30 in the morning when I woke up, I had this on my side desk and it was glowing. It was really good. But the only thing that let that down was the broad arrow minute hand, because I couldn't see that. It was over one of the markers. I couldn't see it. It really does need a long strip of lume going up that hand just to show you where it is. Another change from this watch to the previous is the movement. This particular one features the 8800 master chronometer. The previous one was the 8500. Now, in saying that, I've not had issues with this as far as accuracy and keeping a really nice time, but I do believe that the other one was a lot more stable. Being 60 hours, having twin barrels, the stability as that mainspring winds down, the stability of accurate time was noticeable, especially after a couple of days. But that's a given. A single barrel compared to a twin barrel. 55 hours compared to 60. And another potential negative on this watch that I found is the lug width. You see, this watch comes in at 19 millimeters, so that's going to limit certain people for strap choices. I bought the watch with a bracelet. I bought the watch with this strap, and this strap is a revelation. It is absolutely bee's knees. It is finished to last the distance. I can't see a fault at all with this particular strap. In fact, the taper of this from 19mm is one of the most comfortable experiences I've had. The deployant clasp is beautiful. The way it tucks in under the wrist, very, very nice. So a really neat package, and as a sports watch, getting this wet with that 150 meters of water resistance, no issues. Now in this configuration with that rubber strap, the watch comes in at exactly 90 grams. It's negligible. It's so nice on the wrist. The rest of the specs, as you can see, it's a really well designed watch in its dimensions, its weight. And for me, functionality wise, what really lets it down is that crown. I'm not a fan. I've said it before. I'm still not a fan. But like I said, 2 out of 3 isn't bad. I just find it difficult to grab. Now going back to the original review of the other Aquaterra, it's gone. I've sold it to semi-fund this particular watch. And like I said, one in, one out. Do I miss that watch? Yes, I do. I think it was a nice unit. I love the orange accents. 20mm lug width. Really nice and thin profile. I didn't have an issue with that watch. The crown was great, but I took up the challenge to buy this watch so I can spend a month on the wrist with this and see if I was wrong. And like I said, I was wrong in a couple of areas, especially on the 38mm. This watch to me looks like it can compete with the likes of Rolex Explorer or Datejust. In fact, to be honest, I think it's actually better. And I don't want to offend any Rolex guys out there. I think this is a little bit more versatile than any of those watches, especially with that 150 meters of water resistance, the silicone hairspring, the coaxial escapement with that long service life. Just a more modern take on these classic watches. Lastly, if I draw my attention to the bracelet is lovely, it's comfortable, it's malleable, it drops straight from the lug, so it does fit the wrist very comfortably. I do not like the center links polished. I do not like them at all. They are a scratch and fingerprint magnet. So I'm quite tempted to take that bracelet, go down to my watchmaker and say, can you just brush the whole thing, make it monotone? But we'll see if I get down to that stage. As far as the rest of the package, the watch is lovely. The different mood that comes off that dial, the teak deck is superb. I'm really happy that there's viewers out there who get in touch with me, and you know who you are, and you give me some feedback and input and say, hey Pete, give it a chance, try this or try that, and you give me advice. And For me, I like to think of myself as teachable. I like to think of myself as correctable. I was wrong in a couple of areas of this watch, so I've given it a chance. It's now in the collection. Thank you to you guys for pushing me over the line and giving me your feedback. I think Omega are on the right track with their watches, especially with those movements. The George Daniels coaxial escapement is pretty much the biggest thing that's happened in movements in the last maybe couple of 100 years. The biggest innovation, and being a mass-produced movement in a watch accessible to the public, no brainer. Whatever model you get with a coaxial, be it the first, second or third generation, especially the second and third, are really impressive. Meta certification, so extremely accurate, extremely stable. I think you really can't go wrong. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Thank you once again. Hit me up in the comments, leave me your feedback about this watch. Did I make the right choice? I humbled myself, I listened to you guys. I feel that I did the right decision by listening because this watch is superb.